Romas Zabarauskas is a Lithuanian film director, screenwriter, author, and producer known for The Lawyer, You Can't Escape Lithuania, and We Will Riot. Romas is also a member of the European Film Academy. He takes part in social actions against homophobia, such as developing a map of LGBTQ-friendly cafes in Vilnius, Lithuania. We are thrilled to have him on Unscripted. Really excited to have you because I think you are very unique in the filmmaking industry, and that's what the audience is missing. Like, we got a lot of movies out there, you know, like follow a pattern that they all seem the same. Like, the story might change a little bit here and there, or the location, but they all follow a prototype, let's say. So, Romas, tell us a little bit more about yourself. I think there is a lot to say here, so don't keep it short.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Anna. It's an honor. And, I'm here in Vilnius, Lithuania. So, yeah, this is actually not a background. This is a view in my balcony. And
Amazing, huh?
so, thank you. And yeah, I mean, I'm a filmmaker. So I do have a unique career path, because when I started, it was difficult for me to find a producer I would trust, but who would also want to work with me. I debuted with my short porno melodrama at the Berlin Film Festival in Panorama in 2011. But then I came out as gay in Lithuania, premiering this film. And, that caused like a scandal because there was very few out people back then. Now the situation has changed, and I'm very proud I contributed also to visibility of LGBT plus people through my films. And so, now I'm working on my fifth feature. Just this morning, I was at the sound studio working on the sound of The Activist. And so, yeah, basically, I became my own producer and I established my own company. And so, because I wanted to have that creative control and also control of communication. And so I think I succeeded, in a sense. Like, now I'm already quite established. I cannot even consider myself, an outcast or alternative to the Lithuanian film industry. I feel very much, a part of it and included. And so that's kind of my story. Yeah.
So, Romas, what's exactly your style? I mean, you definitely have a school of thought around the stories that you create. What exactly you try to embody?
No, that's a great question. Thank you. And I studied film abroad. I studied in Paris, in Paris 8 University, but I also had an exchange year to New York. So it wouldn't be a mistake for me to say I'm very much inspired by French classics and American classics. And it was funny because when I studied in France, people like the teachers were really passionate about American cinema. But when I studied in New York, there was more passion about the French cinema. So, maybe we always like something that is elsewhere. But,
Yeah.
it is true. Like, I'm inspired by the great filmmakers that opened my worldview and kind of that allowed me to experience different identities, but also different visions. I watched a lot of films at the local library, and I watched films like from, like Derek Jarman, Agnes Varda, Truffaut, Godard, but also Almodovar, Pasolini, like, and then also, yeah, Hitchcock, Douglas Sirk. And I was very inspired by all those names. And then when I grew up, I actually was even surprised that I found a lot of those filmmakers in that local library without any like censorship also, but
I see, yeah.
yeah, so that's kind of what I'm inspired. And for me, I'm still interested to make films based on drama. So based on, I don't like the word story as much as I like the word drama, because the word drama for me, like, it represents also like a discussion, a debate, different sides represented in the film. And also I always look to create something original, because I think that all in all, like, we still seek for originality in art, even though, of course, like, yes, 20th century kind of changed a lot of notions about the art, but still, ultimately, we do seek for something new. And the last thing I would say is that it's a great question, what's my style? Because sometimes, I'm still like an art house filmmaker in a sense, but sometimes art house becomes like a brand in itself. Like, it's like, long takes and this kind of, seriousness to it, and that becomes associated with art house. But I don't like that. I don't like to kind of think about art house as a category. I just like to think of my films as art the way I see it, and then I seek for to create something original rather to replicate a certain kind of brand of artisticness. Yeah, if that makes sense. Anyway, so yeah.
I really like the fact that you highlighted the word drama because, I mean, drama is an artistic expression of the human condition, right? Encapsulating the complexities, conflicts, and emotion, right? That basically defines our existence. So I believe that, like, in filmmaking, like, drama reflects societal norms, like personal struggles, moral dilemmas. What is, like, the message that you try to embody with your films?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think absolutely drama does all those things that you mentioned. And, I feel like also a little bit of context, like, in a sense, like, a lot of filmmakers, I feel like, or even like film experts, are kind of afraid to focus on the drama when discussing films, because they think that it kind of diminishes the kind of, the cinematic quality of it. Because, when we think like, oh, how cinema can be different from theater, from the tradition of drama that goes, yeah, from the, ancient Greece and stuff. But I feel like there can be a misunderstanding here, because I feel like, film gives a new way to embody that drama, and you can see all the emotions bigger than life from the actors thinking about the characters. You can really feel that you're with them, and and that's a unique quality to cinema that allows to make drama in a new and fresh way. But to answer your question, what's my message? That's a very difficult, complex question, because, like, I always like to say that I don't have a message, because if I would have a message, I would just share the message. But I choose to make a film. And, like, I don't want to reduce the film to a message in a sense, because then why would I even make the film? Like, for me, the film is already such a kind of shortened, like, packed version of, yeah, like, emotions, the drama again, and the ideas, but, ideas that are being discussed rather than just kind of one message. So for me, like, yeah, I would rather people just watch the film and kind of experience it, and then have their own ideas. Yeah.
So, like, right now, everything is happening, like, a lot is happening around the creator economy. No, and there's lots of creators out there, and like, the internet is so crowded of content, but somehow the network effect makes some of it stand out versus others, right? And separate this from the concept of how algorithm works to position, and I found it fascinating when I see how some independent filmmakers, like, are making it on the top of, like, the showbox, and that my thinking is, what do you think the school of filmmaking has given you, and you've learned from, versus, being like a complete independent creator without, like, any background, and just, like, taking this from a passion perspective?
Yeah. Well, thank you. I mean, I, I studied the film, but it was at a university, not at a film school, and there was a focus on the theory rather than practice, although we did have a little bit of practice. But I really actually appreciate the fact that I learned practice from practice, and I learned filmmaking, yeah, from making films. because that gave me freedom to experiment, to make my own mistakes and learn from them, rather than to kind of be guided by a professor, which I always felt like I wouldn't be very comfortable with that in that sense. But in terms of theory, I think that's crucial, and I think that's a very important component, because in order to create something original, you have to know what has been already created, and it really comes to that. So that's kind of what I learned. I learned analyzing cinema and just watching the classics and kind of understanding what inspired what, and kind of how do I want to get inspired by which classics, kind of. So for me, it was about that.
When you mentioned drama, like it popped in my mind this movie, The Servant. Like he was directed by Joseph Losey, and basically it's a British drama film. I'm not sure if you've seen it, but for me, it was a story that it still, when I'm thinking of it, it twists my stomach, right? Because it's so real, and it adds this, it's a psychological relationship among four characters, right? And how, like, I'm not gonna spoil it, but I've seen some of your things, and I see that there's like as you said, there's a lot of art that is embodied in your films, and that's very rare and highly unique. So I feel that your audience also need to have certain intellect, which is, for me, it's like sometimes like it's saying like, oh, maybe it's limiting the audience, but what I found out is actually that people are actually smart and they want smart things, and they understand it maybe from different angles, and all that. What is your, maybe like diving into the real Romas, what's your, with your philosophical approach of life?
Thank you. Wow, you're asking the big questions. I mean, I I think that basically I do. Well, I feel like a lot of those things that I already mentioned are a big part of my life. Like, I believe in originality, I believe in drama, I believe in kind of debate of ideas also, which is kind of sometimes rare, nowadays. And for me in my life, like, I really value conversations with other people, and kind of, when they go unexpectedly deep, whether it's someone you know deeply or you don't. But I just love these kind of things. And also, I mean, overall, my kind of view, well, it's interesting to bring my new film into this, The Writer, because it represents two different worldviews. So The Writer is about Kostas and Dima. They met serving at the Soviet army in the 80s. Dima joined Kostas from Russia to Lithuania. They lived together, and then in the 90s, when Lithuania gained independence, Kostas went to study to New York, left Dima behind, and now he became a writer and wrote a book about their separation. And Dima reads the book and decides to pay a visit and correct a few facts. And the whole film is their discussion, conversation, and they have a little bit different points of views, because Dima is more an optimist and believes that you can make choices that impact your life, and that's ultimately what I believe. But Costas, as an academic, he is more cautious and thinks that our lives are kind of determined by social conditions we live in and other
Yeah.
circumstances. And I also, I see the meaning in that. Of course, we do have those limitations, but still, personally, I am an optimist. Of course, I also acknowledge the privileges that I have in my life. I do come from a middle class supporting family, and well, I'm able-bodied and white and cis man, etc. But still, I think that even then acknowledging those privileges, like, a lot of people then still don't see that they can change their lives, with their choices. And I think we do need that optimism, especially today, I think.
Yes, very, very to the point. I think like right now is when our listeners will be like, let's talk about your movies, right? Like, because So, because now like the curiosity, I think like has sparked. So why don't we navigate a little bit on porno melodrama? Like, can you share what inspired you to create the film and how it felt to have debuted, at such prestigious international festival? Like,
Yeah, thanks. I mean, it was it really came from my own frustration, in a sense. Like it's a story about two men living together, and then one of them accepts to play in a porno film with his ex-girlfriend to earn some money so that they can both then, that the gay couple emigrate from homophobic Lithuania. So it's the plot is kind of out there. It's a little bit wild, but that's why it's also called like porno melodrama. It's a kind of double entendre because it's like it's so melodramatic, and I think both the style and the kind of story comes from my own frustration. Living as a teenager in Lithuania, growing up, and yeah, I'm actually very happy that the film continues to screen even today. Sometimes, both in Lithuania and internationally. And I like that we made the film in such a free way, like with a small team, but we allowed ourselves a lot of experimentation. And we shot it on Super 16 also, which for a debut short, it was quite challenging too. So I think our bravery kind of paid off, with that film for sure.
and right now we have the writer and the activist, right?
Yeah, yeah.
What
So, yeah.
like that like the writer delves into a more profound theme of identity, right? Like, and also based in Lithuania.
Well, the writer was shot in a studio in Lithuania and then one day in New York, but it's actually a New York-based story. Yeah, so but the activist is based in Lithuania. So the activist will be a very different film. The activist has an ensemble cast and it is in Lithuania and Lithuanian language. And the activist tells a story of a print factory worker who infiltrates a neo-Nazi group to find the killer of his activist boyfriend. Actually, it's kind of interesting with the activist because, um, we started to write the script like some 4 years ago or something like that. But now, just last week at the European Parliament, there is such a resurgence of like nationalist or really neo-Nazi like politicians. So I feel like this film will be very on time. On time. It will be next year, so the premiere. Yeah.
With all this work, like, where your challenge was the status quo, like push boundaries, like what is the most surprising and impactful feedback you've got from your audience or critics that might help you see your work in a new light?
I mean, yeah, like now we just released The Writer in Lithuanian cinemas like a few weeks ago, and we toured, just had different Q&As, and some people did say that they changed their perspective, but not about queer life or queer characters, but a woman said that she changed her perspective that basically a person is defined by their choices, not their identity. And I was like, wow, that's amazing that was her insight, and what an honor really to be able to shift someone's perspective. I wouldn't dare to say that this is my aim because, like, I don't know, like, yeah, like, I don't want to say, like, yeah, I'm making films to change people's perspective. I don't know, but if it did, like, that really touched me. Yes.
What are I mean now like changing seats, right? And putting you in the audience, like what are those films that did have an impact on you, and change your perspective about life?
Well, for me, my favorite film is a Hollywood melodrama from the 50s. It's called All That Heaven Allows from Douglas Sirk. And it's about a widower who falls in love with her gardener. So it's very much forbidden love, and maybe a little bit of a metaphor, for queer love too. And I don't know, I just love the film because I love how it combines this kind of lush colors and like strong visuals, but also this sentimentality, because I really love sentimentality in cinema too. Um, so yeah, this is the first film that comes to mind.
That's great. No, like I'm sure like right now it's on everybody's top list, like at least in mine. So,
Yeah,
you
and I
know,
need to watch The Servant.
yes, exactly. Like that like that makes we make sure we will follow up on a next conversation about it.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
the very I think you will love The Servant. So
Okay.
and if I'm mistaken, then like I think like we'll make a comment on YouTube. So for those that are curious about our thoughts around it, but um, you know, Romas, with today's internet and the progress we've experienced, I think as a filmmaker you can say it has had a great impact on your career. Perhaps like you can reach a larger audience, but there might be like also downsides of it. Do you see a bright positive future with where the internet and filmmaking media industry is going?
Well, it's a very complex question because, of course, on one hand, of course, internet, allowed to access a lot, a lot of audience worldwide, But on the other hand, while initially distributors were seen maybe as the kind of, as those who distribute the physical copies of the film, but now that we have internet, we still see the territorial kind of distribution model, still dominates. And this is because of various reasons. But one of the reasons is that you still need to work with an audience kind of locally and know your audience locally to know how to, well, market the film for that audience. So the internet's possibilities are so vast in a sense, but then on the other hand, like it's almost like overwhelming, and like, but how do you do the work needed to still access those audiences, even though you have a technical access, so it is very complicated. But of course, like when you see some tendencies and you think about the future and you see how fast AI technologies develop, and the translation possibilities develop fast and kind of improve, and then you think like, wow, okay, so some level of customization in a sense will be more accessible in the future. I don't think it's there yet, but I think it will be, so it will be kind of essentially easier to subtitle the film, like maybe even in the very future, like maybe do to dub even, like with the AI voices, so it's, of course, it's interesting to think all about that, but I also focus on my 3 years plan, like
Yeah, I
like
see.
because I'm not a scientist, so
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. That was exactly my next question. Like trying to imagine like your day to day life. Like, what is to be a filmmaker? Like, you wake up. Like, what's the routine you need to make sure you keep? Um,
Well, yeah, like for example, this morning I went to the sound studio, and then with the sound designer, we watched kind of the progress that he did on The Activist, and then it was actually very, very great experience. Like we immediately kind of discussed a lot of things, and then I made a lot of suggestions, and then we kind of reworked. He reworked, together with me, the sound design of a very complicated scene involving a lot of people, and yeah, and then I called the composer and asked like, okay, how is your music going? Like, are you gonna send us the music soon? Because we kind of need it already for the sound design. And then
I
she
see.
was like, she gave me an update, and then she actually sent me a demo, and then we added the demo on in the studio. We watched it, and then we commented to her. Like, so like it's very dynamic because this is today, but all the other days this week look completely different. Like, so maybe I work on the distribution of the writer,
I
or
see. Exactly.
and
Yeah, yeah.
stuff. Yeah, so it's very dynamic. Yeah.
So how you balance your various roles from director, screenwriter, author, producer?
Well, yeah, I do a lot. I do work with other writers on my last two projects, and I do work with other producers as well. But yes, quite unusually, I still produce them via my own company. But the thing is that though a lot of filmmakers, have other jobs, and I only focus on my own films. So in that sense, I do save time, but because I do these different roles, I can also sustain my career. But also, I'm very grateful, and I don't take it for granted. But basically, when I started, I did a lot of crowdfunding, and some relationships grew into this kind of more constant support in a sense, like, and I'm very grateful about that. And I understand that I'm in a very lucky position also to be able to kind of sustain my career like that. So, let's see what the future brings, but fingers crossed that I can continue to make films and grow.
Hmm. Throughout your career, what was the most valuable advice you've got from somebody?
There is no limit to the number of emails. This is the most valuable because most people stop after two emails or three emails. And listen, that's probably a polite thing to do. But in my life, one of the biggest success that I had, in a sense, was after I wrote 10 emails during the period of a year, but still like 10 emails without an
Insistent.
answer. Yeah, without an answer. And then I got a positive answer after 10 emails. And actually today that happened again. Like I basically, oh my God, I don't know if I should say this, but I'll say this. I just, like, someone promised to make a donation actually to my company, and like, but then, like, it's, people are busy, and then I followed up, and sometime I already lost hope. But yesterday I followed up to again, like, this week I followed up a few times again, and I got the donation today actually. So I'm very happy. And like, that's just how it works. Like, I'm sorry, like, some people will be offended. Some people will say, like, okay, you crossed the boundary, like, I didn't answer, so like you should understand it's a no. But you know what? It's not on you. Like, they can say no. Like, it doesn't take a lot of time to say no. Like, I'm not interested. So it's on them. So I'll just keep emailing everyone for any opportunities. And seriously, it's a good advice, I think.
Yes, I think it's like at least an answer, right? Like if I open the channel of communication, let's
Yeah.
not leave it open. Like let's close
Yeah,
it with some
exactly.
conclusion. So
Yeah, yeah.
I think it's great advice because in this fast-paced world where so much is happening, right? Like it feels like, well, if you reach out once and there's no reply, then you might as well
Yeah.
like give it
Yeah.
up. And why? So
Yeah. Yeah.
that's a good one. Very simple,
Yeah.
like nothing very
Yeah.
practical, and I'm sure like it got you where you are today. So
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
that's
I think so.
amazing. And what would be the advice you have for other filmmakers out there or content creators?
Okay, well, my advice would be to know that every success story is different. So it's very important to understand that because, like, sometimes our teachers or kind of, people that we respect, they explain one path to success that maybe is their success or the one that they studied. But in reality, every success story is different, and so you just have to have that in mind and have that confidence that so if your story is a little bit different, like, that's maybe a good thing, that's not a bad thing. And just have confidence that you have to find that unique path to success, and so don't worry that it's not by the rules exactly, because actually every success story is a little bit not 100% by the rules, I think. Yeah, so that's my advice.
Romas, I think like that's a very wise advice because a lot of people
Thanks.
out there like are looking for examples, are looking, but it's like in Spain there's this poet that says like there is no path, you make it as you walk. So,
Yeah, yeah,
uh, so I think with that take, I mean, as a last question, because we've navigated lots of path, and I will never finish this conversation because I'm
yeah.
quite curious, and I really genuinely like the passion you put on your films and the success
Thanks.
you've had with it.
Thanks.
Who is Romas Zabarauskas 10 years from now?
Oh my God. I mean, I hope actually that I am able to continue to make films. That's that's already like my dream, because it is difficult, So if I can continue doing that, that's already great. And hopefully, with every film I do, improve in some ways, and so hopefully I can conquer even bigger audiences, and even bigger festivals, with my next films. Of course, I would love that. But on a personal level, it's interesting because I live in a country that doesn't recognize same-sex partnerships for now in any way. I'm together with my fiancé Cornelius for 8 years already, and so I do hope that in 10 years we will be able to marry. That's the engagement ring. So
Congratulations. Yes.
thanks. So yeah, that's my answer.
Lovely answer. Now, if we have to go in the past, I know you mentioned your favorite movie, All That Heavens Allows, but if you have to have been part of a movie, see all the backstage, experience all that, what would be that movie that you're like, I would have liked my name on it and like experience everything that happened in order to be made?
Is it? Yeah, let's go with Kika from Pedro Almodovar. I would like
Ah,
to see. I would like to see how Victoria Abril. She had that Gautier costume with her tits shooting, or her bra shooting. So I would like to see how that worked, and I think the whole experience should have been wild. So I think that would be fun.
having the imagination traveling to all these places always like challenges us
Yeah, yeah.
to so Romas, thank you so much for being with us. I mean, congratulations with all your work, and I
Thank
really
you.
wish you the best of success. Really much looking forward watching your movies, and then after I do that, then I'll go with All That Heavens Allows.
Yeah. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure. Let's definitely keep in touch. And, that's just another great conversation we just had. So I truly appreciate that. Thank you.